Hey, this is Mike Sigla from truetheory.com and welcome to another video. So today we will talk about Halloween because Halloween is approaching, and I want to give you some of my views about esoteric meaning behind Halloween, what is happening on that date or around that date. So Halloween has its origins in a Celtic tradition called Samhain. And this was one of the most important holidays or celebrations for Celts. And Celtic traditions believed that on that date or around this period when we are shifting from October to November, the world of the spirits and our world, in a way, the barrier between these two different dimensions is thinner. And there can be more interaction between our world and the world of spirits. Now, there is actually, I'm Polish, so I grew up in Poland, and in Poland, we have Catholic holiday, the Saints' Day or something like that, which is 2nd of November. And they also have this belief that the barrier, let's say, between the world of the spirits and our physical reality is thinner. So that's pretty interesting that, these beliefs were not unique to Celtic traditions, but also existed in different belief systems. Now, obviously, the modern version of that of Halloween is very different in the Western world, right? Partying, dressing up in scary costumes or something like that, and kids trying to get some sweets, trick or treat, etc. Right? So I will now tell you a little bit about what I think actually happens on that date or around this period, because it's not maybe specifically on this date, but it's more or less the period between the end of October and beginning of November. So I think that, the 12-month cycle, more or less, reflects bigger cycles, which is a transition between densities, right? So you might want to watch my other video about 12 densities of consciousness, etc. But basically what's happening is that, to my understanding, we have 12 density levels, which are like dimensions, and the soul evolves through different levels, right? So the main ones for the soul are from 1 to 7, and then 8 being the end of the cycle. So that's why you have, you split light, you have 7 colors of the rainbow. That's why you have 7 chakras, etc. Right? They represent different frequency levels, which is basically what happens when you evolve through each density, right? And certain transitions between different density levels have some characteristics, right? So for example, one of the important ones is what's happening when we transition from 3rd density to 4th density, because this is like going from a childhood period and teenage years into an adulthood, right? And this is all the New Age talks about that, Bible talks about the end times, Mayans, Hopi, all these traditions talked about the shift between 3rd density level and 4th density level, right? Which is exactly what we are going through now, on planet Earth. That's why we have era of AI is coming, and globalization and technology arises, all these different things going on. So this whole process of going through the densities, through different levels of frequency, through different levels of consciousness, this whole process, right? The soul evolves through the densities, and what's happening around 8th density is that, we become the higher self, right? The highest version of ourselves, still having form, still being a person, let's say, an individual, not like source, which is everything, the mind only. So still individualized source in a way. But then above 8th density, there are other densities as well. There are densities that belong to the source levels. So like the archangels, which are, we're talking about the real archangels, they apparently reside above 8th density, right? So this thing between 8th density and 9th density, let's say, is kind of like the division between two different worlds, right? Because there is a world of souls, let's say, below that, and then there is a world of archangels and gods and source, etc., above that, right? And because the soul evolves through the densities, right, and this is fractally reflected in other systems. For example, we have 12 hours, right, 24 hours a day, 12 months, etc. 4th month, April, is like when, you know, the winter ends, spring starts, right? So rebirth, the end of one cycle, beginning of a new cycle, which is the same, reflected in the same way in what I've been talking about, how densities evolve, right? So we are moving into 4th density, we are moving into adulthood, maturity of the soul, and that's the end of a big cycle, right? So all these different things, months, 12-month period, 12-hour period, you know, how different the periods during the year reflect. All this is a reflection of the bigger cycle, which is transition of the soul through the 12 densities or 8 densities for like, you know, normal transition, let's say. But you have these higher densities and lower densities. The higher densities belong to the source, archangels, etc., and the lower densities belong to us, regular souls, let's say. You know, this cycle, the evolution, is reflected throughout the years. It's like a microcosm of the macrocosm, right? So my belief is that when we are entering 11th month, this is somehow reflecting that transition from, you know, these lower densities, like up to 8th density, into the higher densities, right? Into the densities of the source, let's say. And what happens is that around this period, the barrier, let's say, between the higher densities, the higher frequencies, and the lower frequencies of physical, this world, are thinner, right? What it means is that the entities occupying higher planes, astral or higher density, can influence what's happening here a little bit more than usual, because we are in this transition period, right? In the cyclical 12-month calendar. And the other way around, we have a little bit more power over what can happen with them. So when we pray or we do rituals, we do other things, we can kind of get more access to their level. You know, this was understood by all the ancients, like Celts, or, you know, some of these people who, for example, Celts would give some kind of offerings to the spirits around Samhain. Now, let me tell you a quick story about how this works in a real world. Now, I have an experience because 2 years ago, I had my dream hijacked on Halloween. I actually made a video about dream hacking and dream hijacking if you want to know more about it. But what happens is that sometimes, you know, we get dreams that are hijacked or hacked very often, you know. Normally this is going to happen by our spirit guides and our higher self. So sometimes when you have maybe a prophetic dream, for example, this might be your spirit guides or your higher self is trying to show you something in a dream. So they're going to technically edit the dream, right? It's a little bit like, you know, having downloads or channelings, etc. They're going to channel something in a dream, project something, so you have specific dream. But the same can happen with negative entities sometimes. And, you know, they also can try to make a dream look cool. But remember, free will aspect works in the dream as well. So what happened with me was exactly around Halloween 2 years ago. I actually had my dream hijacked by someone very, very naughty, very nasty, Mr. 666. And in the dream, he appeared, you know, he can hack the dream, or they can hack the dream. So he appeared as something that all I had to do is just accept him into me, and that was the dream. And it looked very innocent. It was like, yeah, it looks good in the dream, right? Because they can hack the dream. Fortunately, I woke up straight away and I was like, oh, no. This is not gonna happen. I know it's a hijacked dream. So this is what happened on the Halloween, right? Because they have more access to our world, that means they can also hack the dreams easier than normal. Normally, it's not so easy for them to hack the dream because you are protected always, and they don't have access to your dream without your permission or without something. But sometimes, you know, when the barriers are thinner, they can try to influence what's going on here more. So that's what I think happens around Halloween. Now, why, you know, we have modern version where people party and dress up? Because, you know, alcohol, of course, and drugs allow entities to influence the person and use the person to deliver whatever the entity desires, emotions and feelings, etc. So, you know, popularizing something like that on Halloween, a massive party everywhere, that's exactly the reason behind it. Because on that night, the negative beings can hijack people easier, right? So that's why you have massive parties everywhere. I also think that when people dress up on Halloween wearing some kind of a costume of a devil or some kind of demon or something around that, they basically invoke that energy, right? So it's a little bit like temporary contract with a being, or you allow the being to use you. So think about that, you know, combined with alcohol or some drugs, etc. You become very easy target for manipulation on Halloween, basically. That's why, to me, the Halloween, unfortunately, is pretty much hijacked holiday to have a better, easier access to people by negative entities. If you're gonna party on Halloween, my recommendation is to, first of all, do not dress up as some kind of devil or some kind of demon or anything like that. Like last time I was partying 5 years ago, I was wearing Wolverine costume. So that, I think this would be a little bit more neutral. Something like that probably is more neutral. And obviously, you know, watch out, like especially with alcohol and things like that. That's obviously up to you. But, you know, if you watch some of my content, you understand that what I say about alcohol opens path for negative spirits and entities to use the person, right? Especially on Halloween this gets amplified. This is the meaning really behind Halloween, what's happening. That's my interpretation also why the partying is something that happens, why people dress up, etc. The real meaning, right? And let me know what you think below the video. Let me know in the comments. And thanks for watching, and till next time.